Yeah. It was a lovely presentation, Tyler, and I have many questions, but I will not choose the prerogative of the chair for a while. I'll be
great self-control.
Great self-control it requires, but please, yes.
My question is coming directly from what you said in the middle of the talk. You said that in these texts, the Guru is speaking and he's being written down in real time, whereas we know from all the others that it is mythical time. Gods are talking or dreams are happening. Even when Darashiko gets the translation done, it is a dream. Dara has had a dream. Darashiko has had a dream of Rama, where he's the famous thing which he's doing. What's his name? Alan in Chicago.
Muzaffar Saab. That's where. No, you're thinking of the.
He did this book, right? Where he
the Vedanta one. Yeah.
The dream of Dara is basically a political statement.
Yeah.
To the court, that look how tolerant I am. And also not only tolerant, actually, how I am the inheritor to Rama. I am actually the Rama of today, in a way. Because, but it's again happening in dream time. So how is this all happening in real time? What has changed? Is it arrival of writing, which has changed it in a way that Benedict Anderson talks about what's happened in Europe with the arrival of Protestantism, etc. What is it? What has changed? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because this is the big question that I wish that I'm searching for the answer to. One thing, okay, I can tell you a couple things that are going on. One is that the entry of the vernacular into the space of writing changes what writing means. In a certain sense, we had mundane forms of writing before, right? And we had non-mundane forms of writing, which was the realm of Sanskrit. The vernacular comes in, and suddenly it doesn't mean the same thing to write anymore that it did before. But what does it mean to write now? I think part of the answer to that question is merchants. Spending a lot of time with these manuscripts, I suddenly realized one day, wait a second, all of these people are writing in Kethi, right? Not Devanagari. All of these notebooks, and there are all of these, and they're reusing all of these leaves, there are all these notes from business transactions, and there's all of these, and clearly they know the Kayas and the Mahajani numerical systems because they're using it to note down amounts in here, and then I realized, boy, it's these folks who have this worldly, mundane form of literacy, and suddenly they're parlaying that over into writing down stuff like, this is revelation. I'm writing down scripture. Now, they're the people who they are the social group which is behind this. And I think that's part of the question or part of the answer to the question, because when you look at the hagiographies, the main character in the hagiography is, of course, the saint himself, but most of the other characters are these Mahajans and these Kayasts and these people who are literate communities, literate classes, if you will, but they're concerned with the worldly, with the everyday. And Jan Gopal, the person who writes the hagiography from which I quoted, himself was a Mahajan. And to borrow Monica Horseman's words, this hagiography that it wrote reads like an account book of which devotee did what. You know, which devotee did a good deed on this day, who invited the guru, who. Yeah.
Because it's almost like the bourgeois revolution in Protestantism, because it is these early literate groups which are vernacularizing the scripture.
It is freaky, isn't it? There are some astounding parallels. I don't want to. I of course won't go too far with it, right? Because then you get into that sticky territory of comparing, bhakti to the Reformation or something like that. But I think it is mercantile and accountant, mundane forms of literacy that make the difference.
The question on that specific topic is, it's very, maybe you can answer it, but at the time it's very hard to know what was there before the text, meaning we know that this kind of deals exist from the Puranas, right? That I was exchange. Like I will go to the Ghana on this date, and then 10,000 of my ancestors will come and believe that. And if I would do that on that day, so the notion of this was before, right? This exchange notion. So
But that's not the point of contention. The point of contention is how does time change? How we exit mythical time, how we enter real time.
yeah, but I'm talking about just the idea of, because even in the beginning of 20th century, if you see work on the Gita press and the notion of certain notions of neoliberalism, so maybe I'm thinking about this idea of merchant religion, right? That, oh, I give that, I take that. I give that, I receive that. But I think there is also something within the daily, Christian traditions that are very deep in the puja in every place. So those comparisons to your, it's like they're a bit, I don't know.
Well, this opens up a big box of questions because the question is one of economic change, right, between the medieval and the early modern period, and what happens during the Sultanate period, which really fundamentally changes the nature of labor, right, in the early Sultanate, in fact, most of this happens in the Sultanate, and it's already established by the time the Mughals show up on the scene. Yeah.
It kind of makes sense also because the Sultanate brings a large number of clerical people from Central Asia, trains them because it needs it, the empire needs it.
Mm-hmm.
You starts in a very complex state emerging in that, roughly in that period. So, because I want to just correct you because when you said merchant, you also said dyers.
Mm-hmm.
So basically you're saying not just merchant but scribes as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it's a literacy, it's the arrival of literacy more than.
Yeah. In fact, I would like to open up this notion of what's the mercantile, what's the merchant, and that Kaists, we tend to talk about them as they are attached to political actors in a general sense. Actually, Kaists are doing all sorts of things. Probably a minority of them are attached to some Rao or some, court, right? The rest of them are accountants. They're involved in trade. And I think part of what happens is these states, these early modern Sultanate states, the nature of trade changes and mobility, people are just more mobile. And this accelerates under the early Mughals, especially in areas like Rajasthan, where a lot of this is happening, because suddenly you have Jain merchants and Hindu merchants moving into positions of authority in the state, doing all sorts of things, right? And so suddenly, the question is not, in fact, I think this maybe makes it easier. The question is not, was religion understood in terms of transaction before, and did that make sense to merchant communities in the medieval period? Definitely that's there. And Daud Ali and those folks have written about this. I think that what's different is that suddenly merchant life gets opened up. In both the Dadu Panthan and the Ranjani Sampradaya, there are vignettes about the saint speaking to traders and saying, yeah, I know it's hard. You're a trader, you're stuck in worldly life, but there is a way out of it, a way that you're not aware of, right? And that way is through this emotive, putting it extremely succinctly, stay involved, completely involved in worldly life, keep on making lots of money, it's great, but all of your emotional capital, right, has to be put into the community. And you know what? A good way to show that is to give money, because that shows, that's a good way to show emotion. It works, yeah, apparently.
But it's so Calvinist.
Yeah, there is some Calvinism to it, yeah.
Yes. Oh. No, please go. It's like you guys have questions.
No.
But I'm starting one. So, I have another question about authority. Because if we think about who was in the game before, right, the authority of religion, so we have those Brahmins with text, with Sanskrit, and they can read it, they can chant it, and then we have a new crowd who want to base its own authority. And they do it in the vernacular. But it's very impressive. If you should look at the performance of this, to see a person sitting in front of a beautiful book and do something most people still cannot
Yeah.
So I'm sure it was part of the game of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how what I'm seeing.
Yeah, nicely put.
Sorry, can we take 2-3 questions?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We seem to have
Yeah.
many questions. Yes, please.
I'm just curious. I don't have much idea about this. I would like to know that we are mainly dealing with the western part of India, like the Sikh, and but it is a similar time frame we have this Chaitanya cult in the east, but we don't see much of a very textual writing or a very because they have more of bhajans or kirtans, and they are not very. They are more of oral traditions that have been carried forward over time, and we still have very little known of them. And that had already come from the tantric traditions of the pre-Mughal times. And if we chronologically put it, we had the tantric tradition in the 12th, 11th, 12th century, followed by these bhakti movements in the 14th, 15th century. But in the eastern zone, I'm not very aware of much of textual or book or writings as such. So do you think that as because the Mughal power was centered in the north and they have this show or maybe the scribes were in their court or maybe they had brought people from around, the merchants where the entire activity was focused in north and the western India. Maybe that was why the ritual traditions are not the same, or if there are evidences of not, like if there are traditions I'm not aware of.
Another question. Did you have a question? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm going to
Hey, how are you?
Okay. Fascinating talk. And I like the emphasis you put on the form of that's the main argument. I wanted to ask you, and this goes back to the old debate about cyclical time and linear time. And you said that you very clearly see a historical time appearing in these texts. Now, many of these texts are written around the time when Deen-e-Ilahi has been declared by Akbar. And Deen-e-Ilahi also marked the first year of Akbar's reign. And this is the calendar which then goes on till the end of the Mughal Empire. So that's the first year of Deen-e-Ilahi, the first year of the Mughal Emperor's calendar, according to which all subsequent records were generated. And this notion of what you've done by, I do not know what is the precise method through which you dated precise text to 1603, 4, and then, I'm sure there is I'm not a language expert, but what does this, when you talk of linear time, and linear time actually emerges when the entire time frame and the competing chronologies of these various sects, religious orders, saintly plus temporal combined orders. One can think of maybe a similar thing happening in Tibet, where the Dalai Lama is both the temporal and the spiritual head. So when these chronologies are all collapsed and delineated into a singular time frame, what does it do to, and my question has two parts. A, how do you then say with precision that it is historical time that they are dealing with? And secondly, if you can throw some light, how do you precisely then date many of these scriptures?
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I'll do them in order. And I should say, I'm actually, I'm writing notes about what everyone is saying, not just so that I can respond, because these are great. These are helpful for thinking through the material for the chapter. I'll say briefly, yes, you put it great. You put it very well. It's a performance. In fact, if I can just transcribe what you wrote and put that in the chapter, I'll be very grateful. No, it absolutely is that. Yeah, and by the way, which community is it that you're working on?
I'm working on very small local communities, so have in each neighborhood there are very different here in our buildings. There are small groups are forming around the group. So I work in Shahadra, in the Chattanooga extension, and each one have around 200-300 families who live in the same vicinity. So I worked on 2 case studies. Both of them were formed around most of the groups around those areas were formed 70s to 90s.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so again, recent memory, yeah. So there are, right. So the saints, Kabir, Ravidas, etc., make fun of the Pandit, right? Make merciless fun of the Pandit who recites from pothis, who recites from, I'll go back here, recites from this type of manuscript. This one, right? Poti par jag mua pandit bayana koi ek akar prem ka parisa pandita hoy, right? You can read manuscripts, read pothis as long as you want. You won't become a pandit. You won't become wise, right? Ravidas says, taratari apavitrakari mani rejasi kagadat karat vicharama bhagati bhagatu liki hetehi upari pujiye kari namaskarama, which is, when it's the tardi tree and you get alcohol from it, you say it's impure, but when you turn it into paper and you write down a bunch of bhakti on it, or you write intellectual stuff on it, you bend over and pray to it, right? So they make fun of this performance, but yet that's what the gurus who, the monks and gurus who take up their authority after these saints pass away essentially do. So how do we reconcile those two? Well, I think part of it has to do with the kind of charisma, right? Because you have a text which is sashwat, right? The text that a Brahmin Pandit performs in Sanskrit is a text that's outside him in the sense that it's always already out there, right? And he recites from it. This, however, the Guru Vani, is the Guru himself, right? And when you channel that, you're channeling the charisma, that personal charisma. I mean, these are all, as I think you're describing, these are very guru-based cultures. You can't think of these religious traditions without thinking of the persona, without thinking of the figure of Ravidas or Kabir or Dalu or whatever. And I think that's part of how it works. But I'm going to think more on that. In the case of Bengal, it's fascinating. Actually, they were writing a ton of stuff. Although what you said is correct. I mean, these are all performed cultures, bhajans, Chaitanya, with his circle of devotees around him, singing and clapping. I mean, that's essentially was the ritual life. But you also have all of the Gaudiya Pandits in Vrindavan, who in the mid-1500s are writing copious written scholastic works in Sanskrit, on both paper and palm leaf, and they're sending those to the other Gaudiya Vaishnavas in Bengal, because they're like, well, those guys are doing all of this stuff, they're singing and dancing, but they don't know what they're doing. They don't know their deeper meaning and the rules of all of this, so we got to send them books. The Final Word by Tony Stewart is brilliant because it starts off with a story, with this story of how they sent all those books there. And it's a great story. I highly recommend it. But yeah, I mean, essentially the idea was that we got to have some written works because we can't just be doing whatever. All of this emotional stuff is great, but we have to have a written scholastic apparatus. And in terms of historical time, right? Two interesting things about that is one is, so the dating of this manuscript is all done through colophons, which everything I shared today is done according to the Vikram Samvat, the Vikrami calendar. And what's funny again about these traditions as opposed to other ones is they're much more diligent about noting time and place of copying than the other ones, which is what caught my attention in the first place about these. But
some people also say that there are about a dozen Vikram Samvats.
Yeah, although this one, for this period, it's consistent. I mean, these ones are consistent. I mean, you can date down to, with remarkable accuracy for this period. for this period, late 16th through
And for this
18th.
region,
And for this region as well, yeah. There are mistakes. Sometimes you find calculation mistakes, errors in the manuscripts themselves because you put together the month and date and you say, wait a minute, no, that would not have fallen on this date of the week. So there are mistakes. However, on one hand, you have that, right? You have that calendar. On the other hand, manuscripts refer to this date in the year of the reign of Akbar, right? Or this date in the reign this date in the reign of Shah Jahan. So, and the hagiographies again, when they talk about historical individuals who are rulers, right? Most of the time they talk about Sultanate and Mughal rulers, even if it's apocryphal, right? When they talk about Hindu kings, most of the time it's again this king that doesn't have any markers of identity, could be anywhere at any time. But the Sultanate and Mughal rulers are always identified. There's always an attempted verisimilitude in the descriptions, and the texts that I've quoted here talk about visits to by the Guru and visits from Akbar, Shah Jahan, Jahangir by Mughal Subadars, particular Mughal Subadars and employees in the Mughal state. And so I'm so glad you brought this up. That's actually, if anything, that's the clock by which they're running. It's not Hindu kings in their localities. It's the Mughal Imperium.
in fact, it also reminded me of the first, the beginning of the Quran, where Gabriel says, Ikra,
Mm-hmm.
read.
Yes.
And that's the kind of tradition that such
No,
vernacular.
this is beautiful what you just said, because actually when Islam comes, literacy is just arriving in Mecca. Mecca is a trading town. It is just arriving. Mecca, and Muhammad is a merchant, even though he is not being taught because he is an orphan. But the others are just learning around him literacy. And the Arabs don't have a book. The Jews have a book. Their neighbors have a book. The Christians have a book. Their neighbors have a book. But the Arabs don't have a book. And that's why that line is very important. Iqra bismika. Read in the name of your Lord. Read. But actually, it's early literacy seems to change societies in multiple ways, including religion.
Oh, yeah.
But
Absolutely.
this thing you said about the Mughal king is one of the I was surprised that even in the south of India, even in Vijayanagar, even in what is now considered Tamil, the Mughal king was a recognized authority. So even though they did not directly control everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's I know I'm looking over at you, Galina, because you've worked on hagiographies more than I have. I mean, you have these figures there, and I'm not saying that these hagiographies and this other material memorializes actual historical meetings of individuals or anything like that. Instead, what I mean is it kind of imagines the Sultanate and Mughal world as something that extends beyond the borders of the local, maybe as far as Mecca, maybe to places in Central Asia, right? Again, it's a clock, it's a world clock by which you can set your watch, right? And it's something that can locate these individuals in time, right? This is one other thing this is fascinating. Manpreet and I were looking at this the other day. A whole genre of text and manuscript that have not been looked at are these Padsha namas, where folks in places in Rajasthan are copying down the Vanshavalis of local kings and of the Mughals with dates and reigns, information about all that, both together side by side. And you're thinking, who wants this information? Who needs this information? How do you use that to tally things? Anyways, yeah.
Thank you, Tyler. First of all, very happy to have you here. And I have one question that is connected to this. Why do you think that these particular three sects develop this sense of sanctity for books? Because it's not prevalent. I mean, okay, there are situations in which Tutsidas and Ramcharitanas can be treated as secret text, but this kind that are destined to be sung, destined to be used by priests, where bhajans are usually grouped according to the season. They're really made
Yeah.
to serve them in the temple.
Yep.
But they are very technical,
Yeah.
technical books. I mean, nothing like that. It's really, they are written, I mean, the letters are big, but not because the book is sacred and it has to be pretty, just for the priest to see well.
Yeah.
Just for technical reasons. And so, absolutely no sense of the sanctity of the object is there. So I was wondering, is it, and also in the Kabir Panth as well. So
Yeah.
the Panchvani preserves Kabir's saying for the Dadupanthi, but the Kabir Panth itself doesn't seem to have to treat Kabir's utterances as a sacred object, a sacred. So is it only those three sects? Is it, can you draw a map of this concept of the sanctity of the text throughout North India? So why do you think, if it's only those three, why it's only them and it doesn't seem to, the same understanding doesn't seem to be present elsewhere?
And does it have to do something with them being nirguns?
Nirguns, huh?
But not all nirguns
Yes,
are
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
That's the thing. If it
Kabir
was,
is-
yes, if it was nirgun sagun, I would understand the idea of it. There must be some, but it's not that. It doesn't seem to be, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we? Actually, there is a related question that I had. I mean, and it's not formulated well because I don't work in this. I have no idea. But I was just wondering, does it have, especially about these three sects that you're talking about, does it at all have a connection with the notion of heterodoxy, which has a longer tradition? Which seems to stand in variance with what we understand as the Brahminical orthodoxy. Because almost all the sects that you talk about are in some ways questioning of the orthodox, right? And in Brahminical tradition, as you were pointing out, notions of time are different. Also, what is sacred is very different, right? The Smriti tradition declares that Shruti is superior to Shruti. Right? What you hear is much more sacred than what you memorize, what you read, the text, and that kind of thing. I mean, can we read a certain kind of rebellion in actually according this divinity to texts, and also, kind of the monumentalization of these texts, through architecture and so on. And that kind of relates back to your point about merchants, Mahajans, these kinds of newer groups who are looked down upon in orthodoxy, right? But they are the ones who seem to be engaged in producing these texts, making these texts into monumental objects, alongside being sacred objects. And this metaphor of the palace, as opposed to the temple. Right. I mean, I was wondering if one could do a much more insurrectionary reading of the text itself. The idea of the text as sacred. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah, no, this is great. This is all going in here to be added to the added or elaborated upon in the chapter draft. So thank you both. In fact, I think I can kind of answer both questions with one answer, and that is that there are two trajectories for the production, circulation, and performance of material texts among, let's say, the Bhakti devotional world of early modern North India in the 16th through 18th centuries. The first is the more Eastern Vaishnav model, in which the text is one that's inherited from earlier tradition. It's the Puranas, particularly the Bhagavata Purana, and whatever liturgical practices and ritual uses of texts that happen there among Gaudiyas and Vallabhites and other groups tends to stem from how the Puranas were read, right? And even manuscript culture there tends to follow the conventions of the Bhagavata Purana, again, Puthi manuscripts, and as Galena was saying, when people use hymn books, right, when they use manuscripts for performance of vernacular hymns, these books in themselves, though they are given the respect that, say, any book would be given, right? You don't touch it with your feet, you don't let it fall on the ground, etc. But other than that, no. When they, Srivats Goswami was talking about this, he said, when they wear out, you copy them out and you toss them, right? These are completely different genus. What's going on over here, and so also, I think the link is one, this inherited tradition of Vaishnavism, right? Where texts are of a certain kind, right? Texts that have that kind of aura of a certain kind, those are in Sanskrit. Hymns, vernacular hymns, are powerful, right? But their materiality is not. It never becomes important. There's no occasion to. It's because, and this is the insurgent thing, the traditions of further west with these nirgunis, right? And again, I don't know why it doesn't happen with the Kabir Panth. I honestly cannot make sense. I have not been able to figure it out. But further west with these groups, it's insurgent. They are criticizing, and this is another chapter of the book, they are criticizing not only the materiality of Sanskrit religious works. I use that word religion very loosely for a whole corpus of texts in Sanskrit which have to do with the concerns of what we today call religion. They again mercilessly attack those and try to undercut their epistemological validity by saying any Sanskrit text is going to be outside of your sphere of anubhava, right? Your sphere of experience. You can't experience a text which is external to yourself. You can only experience what is internal, and that is if you not only memorize something, right? So the text has to be inside of you, part of you physically, but you have to feel it. There's an emotive quality to that, and this goes so well with the genre of all this because it's only hymns. There's no narrative literature about God, right? There is no Bhagavata Purana to which you can gesture back to. All you have is the saying of the saint, and that's of a particular kind of experience. And because of that, the nature of scripture as, this type of scripture is totally different than what goes on in those Vaishnava communities. And it's something that if you gave it a physical form, right, the material form would have importance. Like the song books of the Vaishnavas can't have importance because that space, that aura is taken up by the Bhagavata Purana or by some earlier archetype. With this, it's the guru. The book is the guru, right? There's no guru in the Vallabha Sampradaya or in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, right? You have Vallabhacharya, but he's not that kind of guru. These books, to really oversimplify it, these books are the guru. And that is why you see that here. And that is why, even when they're put in book form, they are very dangerous, right? Because these are books that move around. These are books which, by the way, none of this kind of oral performance happened in temple settings. This happened in people's houses. These people happen in markets and mandis, right? Again, it's insurgent. It's occupying public space and not the space of a mandir. On top of that, these guys are super close with Sufis. They're super close with Muslims, right? They're borrowing all of this lexicon terminology in even a few practices from the local Sufis. And again, sorry, I'm going on too long now. I'll just wrap up by saying, the first thing I thought was, well, nirgun devotion. You can't have a murti, but you need something to worship. So why not a book? But it was too easy. That was just too easy a thing. And you have plenty of examples of where there's no need for murtis.
Yes, more communities, some again nirguni,
Yeah.
no sacred books.
No sacred books. So yeah, it's something else. And I think it's this. I think it's that. I think it's these books are the guru and allow present living gurus to channel or do something, right, to stand in for their guru. The second thing, and I realize we don't have time for this, is to drop a buzzword, monastic governmentality, That's what it is. The gurus are also representatives of authority in monastic governance for these areas, in which they're imagining their own communities as a polity not completely sovereign, but semi-sovereign, and you have to have a law, right? And that law is the book, so to speak. That is the written law. But that's a whole other thing.
I want to lighten that share.